All right. Kelly, does it make sense? Do you want to kick it off, or I guess for the recording, at least briefly reiterate? I know everybody except for Chris has been through this. And Chris, for your information, we changed our process up a few years back. In this first meeting, as Kelly said, is usually pretty short. We just wanted to get just budget priorities, wants versus needs, kind of like out there. This is not like a say it now or forever hold your peace kind of thing. It's just there's certain things we know we're going to do, right? We know we're going to plow snow. We know we're going to pay the staff and stick on our health insurance plan. And so those things are kind of they're estimates at this point.
Right.
And then it usually boils down to the key budget decisions, at least in my mind, are we going to stick with the current tax rate? What's the estimate of revenue on that? Are we going to stick with the current water and sewer rates? The last 2 years, I believe that we did, right? Am I correct in that because of COVID?
That is correct, yes.
Yeah. Prior to that point, we had been on a 5-year plan to, I'll say, correct our water and sewer. We did some work to go out and say, well, what does it really cost us? What are we charging? Do we have the right structure in place in terms of base fees versus usage fees in order to cover those costs? The answer was really no, by quite a bit. So what that means is we're funding it. We're covering that shortfall from general revenues, which isn't ideal. So we set out a 5-year plan to correct that. I think that we got 3 years into that, if that sounds correct. This would have been the end of it.
I think it might have been
maybe two.
2 years, and then COVID hit, right?
Yeah, and then COVID hit, and we called a timeout on that. So I think that'll be one of the key decisions: is do we? I mean, obviously, decisions are continue to call a timeout, which means we're funding it from other places. Do we get back on the plan? Do we do a catch up? Catch up's probably, a little bit, heavy.
Right.
So do we get back on the plan, or do we get back on the plan partially? So we can get more information about that later. And then let's see, Jen's on, and then it's kind of like, well, like nice to haves. And so that this isn't picking on anybody, but we could talk about, well, do we, put in a new playground, or do we put up this fence, or do we put up something over here? Do we, do those things which are always great to have, but probably you're going to come after paving roads, paying salaries, and those sort of things. So that's kind of how the discussion goes, and we probably don't have a lot of information now. But Kelly, if I stole your thunder there, I'm sorry. I'll shut up.
You're good. I'm not sure, Steve, if you have anything you would like to add.
Well, I do. I wish we could do this in a different setting, but it is what it is, and we're all dealing with it. So I had a meeting last week with the mayor and Kelly, and I will be leaving this year. I have made up my mind that I talked to my family, and this will be my last year. And I think that you folks need to know this. You have to plan for the budget. Right now, my goal is that my last working day will be sometime in August, and my last official day will be October 10th. October 9th is my anniversary date with the town. That'll give me 43 years plus 45 plus 2 years sick time. That'll give me a total of 45 years service. A lot of reasons behind that, but the time has come, and it was a good gig while it lasted, but I'm moving on, and I'm going to enjoy my retirement, going to enjoy my family, and it is what it is. So, but I think that's very important that you folks need to know that, because that'll have an effect on the fiscal year 23 budget as far as whatever you're going to do as far as replacement. So I just I wanted to get that out there. As I said, I wish I could have done it on a one-to-one basis, but unfortunately we can't. We have to do it virtually. Tomorrow, I will be meeting with the supervisors I will pass it on to them. And then I'd like to have the courtesy to visit all the staff and bring them up to speed on what my plans are, and go from there. But that's where we're at. So.
Congratulations, Steve. Oh, that's a say, but congratulations. That's an impressive milestone in 45 years or 44 years. So
I think I served the public well. I think I served the citizens well. But like I say, a lot of factors come into play, and it's time. So, and that's fine. That's where I'm at. So I want to move on. So, but anyway.
Yeah, so Steve he told me last week and told Kelly and probably some family. And as Steve said right now, I think, and Steve, I told you, and that we'll have some opportunities to say publicly, I think what you meant to the town and what you brought to the town. This is a smaller group, but, I feel like I've been around a long time now, as a couple of you others have. And I haven't known the town without Steve Miller the whole time I've been here, which is only not even quite half the amount of time Steve's been here. So he had a couple decades in before I showed up in the 90s. So, so yeah, more to come on this. I think what I'd ask for from this group is to allow Steve to make his rounds and tell people, and do this, his way. He's definitely earned that. So yeah, Steve, I think, probably another, week or so. And like I said, you like this, it's eventually going to spread like wildfire at some point. And you'll likely find that you tell a person they've already heard, but it won't be from me, and hopefully not from this group. So,
and that's the thing. As I said, I just, it's going to be a challenge to fill that position for you folks. I personally think that if you ask me off camera, if I would have a recommendation for you, I'd say yes, I do. But right now, I think I gave you enough time that it's just not boom boom, so we can make a good transition, and we can make a good continuation of government, and we can make that pass through. So, but anyway, that's that's where we're at.
In my experience, when, and not just with the town, but anything, when you have somebody that has is as much experience as you in as many areas as you, one person to do everything that you're doing probably isn't even the answer. So it's going to be a reshuffling of the deck a little bit. But you're right, there will have to be a point person, with some pretty big shoes to fill. And so that'll be the job of this group, is to, once this kind of gets out there, perform that search and have some honest discussions and make the best decision come for the town. But Steve is right, and today is probably the right time to start with this group, because there's going to be a cost associated with whatever changes are coming. So that's going to have to be baked into our thought process as we start to put pen to paper here.
Okay, very good. Moving forward, when we are talking about the budget, Chris, and for David, Kelly, we will get them the water and sewer rate study that was done by MSET. So
Yes.
They have that in front of them.
Yes.
So speaking a little bit about the budget, Kelly, Chief Hess, Rodney, and I met last week, and we talked about one of our goals. And I think one of the goals that we're going to shoot for this year is, take a hard look at the current salaries and how competitive we are against other municipalities in the area and throughout the state of Maryland. And I think we ought to take a hard look at that and see if we are competitive across the board, and then go from there. So that's one goal that we're working on. We're going to work on. So another goal that I want to throw out there, and again, it's just for discussion purposes. I was toying with the idea of bringing on a full-time person. Part of their time would be spent with HR, and the other part would be grants, acquiring grants. So that's something for it's food for thought for you folks to think about. So also, I did, Councilperson Howe and I have been working on one capital item for the Nature Center. And we had the revamp of the stormwater issue going down to the Nature Center. That's been revamped. So any items that you would like to see put in the budget, please get a hold of Kelly or I, and we will put those in there.
It's just Steve said, just to be clear, and Chris, I know the rest of you guys know this, and Chris, I'm sure you understand it. Like, these things, and I have a few too. I haven't really formulated them or sent them in. I don't think that I've heard from anybody else in terms of, like, hey, this is something I'd like to see in. As we go forward, we'll start to present those as sort of like here's the things that people would like to see, so that we can kind of get down to, all right, well, it's the estimate for this is 16,000. This one is 60,000. If we were to, fund these things, here would be the next thing out of the budget. If this were to be the next thing in, or do we try to increase, revenues and X cents on the property tax would be this in order to cover. So that way we can kind of focus the discussion and the decision-making process, down that way. But everything that you would like to see and discuss, I'm fine with, like, let's put all those things on the table and then, get a group consensus on which way to go.
Kristen, just for your information, so I developed a spreadsheet and it has several tabs. I'll start with, say, salary tab, and then the FICA, and then workers' comp and pension and so forth, and work my way across. So as different things change, it flows into the general fund or the water fund or the sewer fund, depending on how it's allocated. And that's something that, you could look at and say, okay, well, and I'm going to send it to you so that you see some of the things that go into some of the line items. If, say, the tipping fees change, we have the ability to change that and see how it all will affect the bottom line. So I'll send that to you so you can see what they have seen in the past and so forth, and get a chance to look at it and, go from there.
Okay. Sounds good.
Does anybody have anything that their committees have talked about at this point?
Hey, nothing at the planning and zoning level. We haven't really met in the last 2 months, so nothing's come.
No, just like Steve said, we're worried about the water, the stormwater running down in the nature center. The road is, we put millings in there and we put little drains, and it just isn't working. So, but unfortunately, the latest, what was that bid? $14,000.
Yes, that is correct.
I'm not sure if that's how we want to go or not, but something needs to be done about the road.
I know.
And I also want to make sure that Augusta Road is paved this year, because it hasn't been paved in a long time, and it was supposed to have been paved. Rodney went in 2014, and then they didn't do it. So I want to make sure that Augusta Road is paved.
Yeah, it's on, ma'am, it's on the list. I've
Okay,
got it on
just
my
checking.
preliminary list, yeah.
All right, thank you.
I know David had mentioned during conversations with the landlords and during council sessions that he wanted to look into a contractor to come in to power wash the walls and power wash the sidewalks. So we're in the process of working on that. Whether or not we can do it in-house, it's a possibility we can do it in-house, but that's something that staff will have to look into, have to possibly go out and get some contractual prices on that. So I do know that David had mentioned that. So also what we're doing is of course, we pulled out our old notes from our fiscal 22 budget to go over items that weren't taken care of in 2022 or the current budget that we're in. So we're reviewing those and looking over those as far as staff is concerned. So.
Does Chief Hess have it in his budget for the body worn cameras? Because in a couple years, we're going to have that, and storage is the big problem with that. So Kelly, I don't know if he's put that in there or not.
You want to talk to that, Kel, or you want me to talk about that?
Go right ahead.
So I believe Chief Hess is looking at funding coming down either from the state or the federal government. And he had mentioned that it would not be in the 23 budget, but it would probably be in the 24-25 budget. So he has looked into that. Am I correct, Kel? I think that's what Chief said.
Yes.
That's what I heard as well. Yeah, we'll just have to wait for Chief to weigh in to see if there's any preliminary things or other items that we don't expect to get funding for. If there's anything unmandated that we need to start to bake in now just to stay on the right path and be prepared. But I don't know that there is. But it does warrant a conversation.
I think in regards to public works with the ARPA funding, we'll talk about this at the management meeting tomorrow, but I know one thing that we're going to try to pull out of the ARPA funding is the updating of the water meters. So we'll talk about that tomorrow. But of course, the ARPA funding is going to cover the water main replacement for New Street, High Street, and the Grafton Street area, which is a good thing. So I think, Rodney, how close are you to putting that out on the street for bid?
We're expecting the final plans, and they're helping us out with the bid documents. We should have them early next week.
Okay.
So I'm expecting. I'd like to put it out mid-February. I'd like to.
The other thing that falls into play that we have to talk about as far as the budget is the preliminary engineering report for the wastewater treatment plant upgrade, the ENR upgrade, and then also other equipment that has to be upgraded. That is coming down to the end. I would venture to say that final report should be presented to you no later than, I guess, April. Now, what that entails is, MDE is going to pick up a good portion of the funding for the ENR portion of that, but there's also funding that has to be done to update some of the equipment at the treatment plant. So that's going to have an effect on the budget also. So I want to keep you well aware of that. That project, that won't be, once the PER is finished, the engineering report is finished, and then everybody decides what they want to do, then we start into the design phase. I mean, probably, I would say you're at least 2 years out from construction. So we have a lot of steps we have to go through, but during that period, it's going to, cost money for design. So you have to keep that in the back of your minds also. So, and we're off the top of my head, I'd rather not say, but I think with the upgrade and everything included, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Rodney, aren't we in the $25 million range? If I'm not mistaken.
It's close to it. I'd have to look.
Yeah, I don't know off the top.
Yeah.
So
it depends which option we pick, and
correct.
And what we decide to upgrade that's not
Yeah.
funded, you
Yeah, a
know.
lot of the equipment at the plant is aged equipment. And the ENR funding will not pay to replace that aged equipment. So those are the things we as a town have to look at, and we as a town have to pick up the tab for. So once we get into April, and once we get the engineering firm in here to go through the engineering report, that would give you a better understanding of what we got. So and I think we have a meeting with them, Rodney, on the 4th or the 2nd, and also we're going to be meeting with MDE on the 4th. Is that correct, I think?
The second rings a bell. I'm not sure about.
Yeah, I think the 2nd is with our engineering firm, and the 4th is with MDE. So anyway, that's a big item that you have to be aware of.
Thank you, Steve, for bringing that up, because that was one of the things that I was going to say with going through the process with both you and Rodney and Delbert and the entire team, that was something that we're going to have to put in mind when we're working on the budget, because we've got some pretty stiff restrictions that are being placed on us.
Yeah, and it's crazy. We did get our final permit, and lucky enough, the permit doesn't go into effect till March 1st. March 1st is when we pull out of the stream and start to spray irrigate. So that gives us 9 months, to get our act together to meet the new permit parameters. So I was glad to see that. That gave us some lead time there. So.
Well, Steve, obviously, we're not accepting your resignation, so you can forget about it.
Well, that's okay. I don't know anything else but to get up and come to work. So I guess I'll just keep doing that. I don't know. Yeah, you talk to my granddaughter. She's not quite talking, but she knows how to say no. So she could say it easier than I can. So.
Yeah, so it'll be a busy year. We got a lot to do, and as all these years, going to go faster than you think. And hopefully, Steve, your big final act here was helping to shepherd us through this pandemic, and we're in a much better place in October, and much closer to normal. And then we only have the challenges of dealing with everything we had to deal with 2 years ago. So.
Yeah, it's like I keep telling everybody, it's like Groundhog's Day. It's like this is happening. I was like version 2, and yeah, it's a challenge. It really is a challenge. There's no doubt about it. To try to keep all of our employees safe and healthy, separate them. Yeah, but they did a fine job. It is what it is. So I have all the respect in the world for our employees. There is no doubt in my mind, and they did a great job. So
I may have had a little issue, whatever. Yeah. So again,
All right.
anybody who has any, budget items they would like me to, incorporate, shoot me an email.
Yeah, I think so. When is the next meeting? And again, I mean, this whole thing is a process, not an event. And you could bring something up in April and potentially have it added, but just for purposes of getting things out there and getting them discussed, if we can take a look at when the next meeting is, and then try to have some ideas. I know David has some ideas. I was hoping he was going to be on here tonight, but if we have things. I mean, one I brought up in the past is just maybe some of those little stands with dog bags for the parks to cut down some of the dog mess that seems to always be out there. But again, it's not a necessary thing, and we've never done it, but it's one that I like to talk about at least a little bit every year or so.
We do have those at the nature center.
Do you? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I was even. Yeah.
You think you need them at Christmas Tree Park?
We have them.
Yes, very much
Do we
so.
have?
We have
Alright.
some, but there's no reason why we couldn't purchase some additional ones. Yes.
Yeah.
Ryan, can I interrupt you 1 second? So Chris, just so you're aware, so the county prints our real estate bills. So what they request is that they would like our information 30 days prior to July 1st. So they want it by June. And so we have to actually pass the budget at our May meeting, which means we have to introduce it at our April meeting. So the next budget meeting we have is the 23rd of February. And that's when we'll do the capital, and then we'll work on water and sewer. And then we do try to do, after our regular meetings in March and April, more budget work session. We'll close the regular meeting and sit down and do some more discussion. And then, so like I said, in April, we introduce it to set the tax rate. We can always change the water and sewer rates during the budget year if needed. That has not happened for quite a while, but if we're going to set it, we usually set it for something that would start after July 1. So we kind of have to work backwards with what the county requires us to do to get that tax rate set. So.
Okay.
So kind of, that's a good point. Our next budget meeting, I don't have that paper printed out in front of me, is February 23rd.
That is.
Okay.
Fourth Wednesday. So if anybody has an issue with that, let me know. If we need to make some adjustments, we can do that.
I don't right now. We have a quorum here. What are the thoughts on the February 8th meeting? Should we, and this includes staff, stick with Zoom for one more and then see how we are looking, peeking out of midway through February for coming back to some in-person meetings, or what are the thoughts?
Can't hurt.
Go ahead, Kelly. I'm sorry.
It can't hurt.
It's 2 weeks away, so what do we, I mean, unless the numbers just, drop off a cliff here in the next 2 weeks, which they might, but.
Yeah, again, I mean, we're a little bit different, entity, and I like to be. I've had conversations with a couple of you guys. I'm personally kind of over this whole thing, but we're not a restaurant, and we're both us, all of us individually, but certainly the staff would be subject to quarantine rules. So should we have an incident or somebody come in and then they're in contact with all those people, we could really hamper our ability to do core town functions if we're having, that kind of meeting, which is kind of the big concern.
I think Zoom is fine for another month, for another couple of weeks. It's not.
Yeah, that's kind of where my head's at, but I wanted to, we made the call administratively and just said through at least the end of January. But now that we're all here.
Does that give them enough time, Kelly, to put the notice out that we're going Zoom? We're okay with that? Yeah.
Yes.
And I say, yeah.
I'm in favor as well.
So we'll kind of do it like school. We're going to say through February 8th, we're going to go to Zoom. And Chris, do you know when the next planning and zoning is? Is that scheduled?
It's scheduled for the 15th, assuming that, they can have enough people that can attend. So the last one got canceled because of, I guess, attendance, and they didn't have a big. There is some stuff that needs to be discussed though. So I know that solar project is up for discussion. So I'm sure we're going to have a meeting on the 15th.
Do you want to? Does it make sense to have that Zoom as well that help attendance, and then we just kind of make the call now that we're going to push this all Zoom meetings through February 15th, then we'll reevaluate and see how things look.
I'm fine with that.
Okay. Yeah.
I'll pass that on to Michelle to pass on to the P&Z group. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, that just feels right now. I mean, I'm looking forward to having things felt. I know we all are, to having things feel like they used to feel, but it just feels like the right thing to do right now.
While we're on that subject, I mean, I want to get off the COVID subject, but while we're on the COVID subject, if you can recall, we extended our employees' emergency leave, I believe, to June 30th of 22. And when we put that in place, we thought, well, hell, that's, a year and a half away. We'll be good to go, so on and so forth. Well, come to find out, because COVID came back again, the employees had problems taking their time off. So you may see something come across to you folks for the February meeting to maybe possibly extend that to December of 22, another 6 months. So I don't want to punish our employees because they are doing a fantastic job. They are working through the COVID, and I don't want to punish them. And the problem we get into is everybody will be taken off at one time, and we won't have, we'll have skeleton staff for many, many weeks. So I think that's something for you folks to consider for the next meeting.
And to add to that, people haven't gotten additional time because we did not go under the state of emergency. So it was like people were accumulating more and more and more with some of the staff shortages. And as you know, we had, a loss down at in our DPW. They're changing things up. So just for the record, people have not added more time. It wasn't due to that.
You're absolutely right, Kelly. That's correct.
Actually, Kelly, that's an important detail. Yeah, I think this is kind of a different case. I mean, we have those deadlines out there so that we don't carry these things indefinitely. But at the same time, it's been kind of like a different time, and forcing them to use it or lose it in a short window isn't really great for them, and it's not great for us either. So I'm in favor of extending a little further. But at the same time, we want to start encouraging folks to take that time and to start to use it when it operationally makes sense. Anybody have anything else? All right. Well, I'll reach out to David. You guys can as well, and certainly we can have conversations. So I think the goal was to. It'd be nice if we could meet in person on the 23rd. It's nice to get that round table going and have some papers out, have a discussion. But if you have things you'd like to see considered, let's try to get those into Kelly so that we can get them on the list and start talking about them for the 23rd. Anything else from the group? Vince got a thumbs up. Kelly or Steve, anything else? Staff? Rodney?
I'm good.
Hey, sir, I'm good.
Good.
Yep. All right. Well, talk to you guys soon.
Good night.
Good.
All right.
Right.
See you guys.
Recording stopped.